Picture this deeply emotional, almost cinematic moment. You're standing right at the edge of an ancient camp. You've just been physically healed of this terrible, deeply isolating disease. And behind you, just cold, barren wilderness. But right there, just ahead of you, is the warm, inviting glow of the community fire. You're standing there kind of hesitating, right? And you're asking yourself this desperate question: am I really allowed back in? Well, in today's explainer, we're diving into Leviticus chapter 14 to unpack the incredibly deep wisdom behind this ancient ritual of restoration. To really wrap our heads around this complex text, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the tension of isolation. Then we'll unpack the specific law of the leper, decode some fascinating symbols like blood and the living bird, look at it all through our four-layer lens, and finally land on a really profound truth for modern life. All right, let's jump right into section 1. Back, but not fully back. The tension of isolation. We really have to ask ourselves this core question right out of the gate, don't we? When are you absolutely, truly clean? You see, in ancient Israel, being a leper didn't just mean you were sick. It meant you were completely, totally cut off. You were legally and ritually unclean. So think about it. When the physical disease finally leaves, you're left in this incredibly delicate, kind of weird liminal space. I think we can all relate to feeling that subtle tension, that tug of war between the shame of our past mistakes and those hopeful yet hesitant steps toward full restoration. So we're looking at a pretty stark contrast here. On one side, you have the outside of the camp, which is cold, barren, complete isolation. On the flip side, you have the inside of the camp, this warm, living community, just glowing with firelight and human connection. And the person who's desperately wanting to return is standing right on the boundary between these two worlds, literally just waiting for a definitive shift in their status.
Which brings us to section 2, the law of the leper and this very specific cleansing ritual.
Now, the absolute crucial point is right there in step 1. Notice that the priest doesn't just wait inside the comfort of the camp for the person to come to him. No, the text tells us the priest goes out of the camp, stepping into that barren space to meet the outcast where they are. Then this highly specific, very visceral, 5-step physical cleansing process kicks off. The priest gathers very specific items, performs a sacrifice over fresh water, uses the blood in a super symbolic way, and then, and actually only then, requires the cleansed person to physically wash and shave before they can fully return. Okay, section 3, blood and the living bird. Let's decode some of these symbols, because they are fascinating. If you just quickly read this list, it might sound like a completely random, bizarre collection of ancient items. But I promise you, every single piece carries immense weight. The text specifies 2 live, clean birds. It calls for cedar wood, which back then was widely known for its incorruptibility and endurance. Then there's scarlet yarn, representing blood and life, and hyssop, which was a plant traditionally used for purification. And finally, an earthenware vessel filled with fresh, or what they called living, water. Just picture the cinematic intensity of this exact moment. The priest commands that one of the innocent birds be killed. But wait, it isn't just killed anywhere. It's sacrificed inside that earthy clay vessel, directly over the fresh running water. It's this vivid, striking mixture of mortality, the literal clay that we're all made of, combined with blood, which represents the real cost of sin or uncleanness, and fresh water, representing life itself. Let's look at the next step and see how this all builds up. The priest then takes the surviving, living bird, along with that cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop. He binds these living, enduring elements together and, get this, he actually dips them into the blood of the sacrificed bird that's mixed with the fresh water. He is quite literally uniting the living bird with the heavy cost of purification. One has taken the fall, so the other doesn't have to. And then we hit the number 7. The priest takes this purifying mixture and sprinkles it exactly 7 times on the person who's being cleansed. Now, if you know ancient biblical text, you know 7 is the number of divine completeness and perfection. This isn't just a partial, half-hearted cleansing. No way. It is a total, definitive, divine declaration that their long isolation is officially over. Right after sprinkling them 7 times, the most breathtaking emotional release of the whole ritual happens. The priest pronounces the person clean, opens his hands, and just lets that living, blood-marked bird flutter away, completely free, right out into the open field. Wow. It is the ultimate visual representation of freedom from death. For the person watching that bird fly away, they are literally watching their own restored freedom take flight. Moving on to section 4, the four-layer lens. Let's unlock the deep meaning here. So, when we're looking at 1,189 chapters of depth, leaving absolutely no stone unturned, we always apply our four-layer lens. We peel back the literal history to uncover the moral, allegorical, and anagogical depth beneath it all. Basically, we're mining for ancient truth that directly applies to modern life. By applying this lens, it becomes so clear that this strange ritual isn't just some arbitrary set of ancient rules. On a literal level, sure, it's a priest managing a public health crisis, dealing with a real physical disease. But metaphorically, the endurance of the cedar and the deep cleansing of the hyssop speak to the true nature of healing. Allegorically, it's this profound, beautiful story of substitution. One bird takes the fall, representing death and sacrifice, so the other can fly free, representing resurrection. And morally, it teaches us something huge. Stepping back into the community requires a definitive, visible break from your past. Which leads us perfectly into our final section, Ancient Truth, Modern Life. Let's look at the wisdom takeaway. I want you to look really closely at this dynamic. Even after the priest goes through that entire elaborate ritual, sprinkles the blood 7 times, and officially declares the person clean, the process actually isn't entirely over. The text explicitly says the person being cleansed must still wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, and bathe themselves in water. I love this because it brilliantly illustrates a partnership. God, through the priest, provides the grace and the declaration of restoration. But you must do the personal action. You have to do the hard, practical work of shedding your old life and washing away the remnants of your isolation. So the crucial point, and really our ultimate wisdom takeaway today, is summed up perfectly here. True restoration requires both a sacrifice and a release of the past. To truly heal, you can't just sit back and rely on time passing. You actually must let the weight of your past fly away, just like that living bird, into the open field. And you must actively, intentionally wash away your old habits. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on regarding your own life. Who decides your restoration? Have you just been standing on the edge waiting for permission to be whole again? And if the declaration has already been made, are you actually doing the work of shedding those old habits so you're finally ready to step out of the cold and back inside the warm, living camp? We are building a pretty incredible series here, exploring every single one of the 1,189 chapters of Scripture in this explainer format. So make sure to join the journey with us. Subscribe, share this with someone who maybe really needs to hear it today, and stay on the path as we continue to uncover more ancient truths for modern life. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.